Good afternoon and welcome to a live webinar. Yes, my name's Andy Hooper, and today we're going to be talking about the 3 steps for a successful e-commerce expansion. Thank you very much for joining me wherever you're joining me. This is being streamed live, so hopefully it all goes to plan and everything works. But there's never any guarantees when you are going live. So today we're going to talk about the 3 steps for a successful e-commerce expansion and how to potentially double your business by doing that. My name's Andy Hooper and I globally expand brands. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction and we're going to go from there. So let's get moving and start today. So today's agenda, a little bit of introduction. Who am I? What gives me the right to talk about this? What and where are the best opportunities for you for your expansion opportunities? What are the 3 steps or 3 secrets to any expansion? And then what are your 2 options off the back of this? What does that really look like? And what should you really be thinking about? So my name's Andy Hooper. I'm the CEO at Global E-commerce Experts and Expandly. I'm an investor in GE Capital, and I've been involved in e-commerce for quite a few years now. I started off first as an e-commerce seller where I sold silicone watches on Amazon and flipped things that I bought at car boot sales or garage sales on eBay. That was my first introduction to the world of e-commerce. And ever since then, I've developed and built out a career focusing around the e-commerce world. Several years ago, I started Global E-commerce Experts, which many of you will have heard of or known, and where I come from today, where we globally expand brands. And since then, we've been acquiring and building businesses and adding it into our group. Now, we've successfully expanded thousands of sellers now, and that's what now gives me the understanding of really what works. And it's given me the data and the insights to really be able to give you what these 3 secrets are. And these secrets are very, very common secrets, but it's really about the information behind that that's going to really lead you and give the information for what you should be thinking about. So you're here, you're possibly thinking about expanding. What does that really mean? You know, when you're expanding, you've got different options available to you. And some of those options are to not expand and continue doing the same thing and open new marketplaces or new sales opportunities in your home market. But some of the advantages, and I will get to the disadvantages of expanding shortly, it requires no new products. So the ability for you to take your current level of SKUs and expand with those is a great one. It increases your sales per SKU, which means you're getting more reviews per SKU. It gives you bulk purchasing power. So when you're getting your minimum order quantities from your suppliers, you can increase your minimum order quantity, which means you're going to reduce your cost price for your goods. Now, those bulk purchasing powers go in lots of different areas. Now, some of that is the product, some of that is in logistics, but there's lots of different areas that you can help with. Now, it also helps with the ability that if you're only selling in one marketplace in one country, by expanding to further countries in further marketplaces, what you're able to do is to diversify that risk according to those opportunities. So you're able to spread bet a little bit more and make sure that you've got a little bit more flexibility than if you're selling on one channel in one country. Because as many of you know, if you get for any Amazon sellers that are listening, you get the Amazon slap and you're only selling on Amazon, that's going to sort of basically kibosh that completely. You're also going to get better optimized logistics. If you can ship in bigger quantities, you're going to be able to put things in containers. By shipping in containers, you're going to be able to reduce your costs, again, to make things much simpler and easy for you. Depending on where you ship and where you expand to, there might be some tax benefits that you should be able to benefit from. And it also gives you that bigger negotiation power, whether you're working with Amazon or whether you're working with other marketplaces or whether you're working with influencers that can support your brand to grow it on a Shopify or a Shopline type platform. So when you're expanding, there's lots there's lots of different things to consider, but it does give you the thought process that actually by expanding, it gives you basically a greater power and more less SKUs, but more quantity, which can reduce your costs. And it's well worth taking that as a positive. So where are the global, I put this global domination piece because I like the global domination, and we'll come on to why that is in shortly. So let's talk about where those biggest world revenue of e-commerce is worldwide. Now, China leads the way. The US is practically half of that, and the rest of the world follows. So, wherever you are in the world and where you're considering, you need to consider what works for you and what's right. Now, there's lots of different ways and benefits of doing that. The majority of the sellers that we work with natively sell in the States and then expand to Europe as the next region. When you look at these numbers, you've got Germany and the UK. When you start adding these numbers up, that makes quite a lot of sense. When you start thinking about UK as a whole and Germany, well, actually expanding to those regions is a lot more simple than China and Japan in some cases. Now, it's well worth thinking about the complications or the diversity of your stock in order to understand what's going to be best for that. But you can clearly see some of the opportunities that those different regions would bring you. So if you're only selling in one of those regions, you're missing a huge amount of opportunity that could come your way. Okay, so here's some of the reasons why people do expand, and this is really key. Why do people expand? One, market growth. They want to expand their brands and continue growing their brand and get the growth of their product worldwide. They want to diversify on different marketplaces, different platforms in different countries. They want to acquire new customers. Depending on your business model, customer acquisition might be the key part. So when you're launching additional products further down the line, you've got more people to reach in order to do that. Gives you a competitive advantage. Your competitors are less likely to steal your product and copy it if you're in multiple locations already. The technology and infrastructure, you can maximize the technology and infrastructure to support what you're looking to do. It gives you economies of scale, as we've already discussed. Another key one that I really like is this seasonal variability. If you've got a summer product and you're in the Northern Hemisphere, that means that you're going to be selling your product from April to October every year. Well, if you was to sell that product in the Southern Hemisphere, that flips. All of a sudden, you've got a 12-month season for your product as opposed to just 6 months. So you've got twice the opportunity to sell your products. Brand recognition is a really, really key one. How do you expand your brand to start building the brand and build that as the key part of your toolbox? Obviously, there's some regulatory opportunities, tax incentives, and trade agreements that, depending on where your products are and where you want to get them to, will enable that for you to happen. And the other piece about that is, strategic partnerships. Who can you partner with that you couldn't with before because you're a global brand? Which operators want your products in all of their stores worldwide once it's a worldwide product? They want you to go through the hassle and the grief, in theory, of getting that product worldwide. And once you've got it in that region, those retailers will take those products and help you to sell them as well. So there's some really, really good reasons to expand. Let me give you some stats. So North America, where a lot of our clients native from, 500 odd million people. You can see the numbers that speak for themselves. All right. When you look to Europe, which is probably the next step that most people expand to, it's a similar number of people. There's a real key difference that you need to consider, though, when you're expanding to Europe as a region. And really, that is that there's 28 countries, 500 million people, same amount of people as North America, give or take. But it's 28 countries. That means there's 28 languages. There's 28 opportunities. There's 28 thresholds. If you're in the States, it's Nexus on steroids. That's the way to look at that. The other thing is you've got the EU versus Europe. The UK had a bit of a spat with the European Union, the EU. The UK is still in Europe. We're just not in the European Union, which means the border frictionless trade that we had before Brexit is no longer the case. So when you're expanding to Europe, there is a split that needs to be considered between the UK and the rest of Europe, and a strategy that needs to play out to make that really maximize those opportunities for you. So When we're talking about expanding, really what we're focusing on is how do we help you to expand into those new regions? Now, everything I'm going to give you can be used to expand into any new region. Okay. So whether you're looking to go from Europe to the US, US to Europe, from to Asia or to Australasia or South America, whatever that looks like, these fundamental basics can help you to do that. Here's the reasons why sellers don't expand. And I think this is a really, really good one, because why don't people expand? There's lots of different reasons, but when you really break it down, there's several things. One, they have no idea what the rules and regulations are, right? The cultural and language barriers seem way, way off into the distance, right? There's the logistic challenges. How do they do returns? How do they fulfill their products? If you are a seller based in the States, well, what does that look like? You might be doing that out of your own warehouse. Well, how do you do that in another region? Like, it adds those complexities. What are the customs in that region? You've obviously got the resource constraints, right? People, in order to make that happen. I mean, the compliance is completely understandable. Business and product compliance, we're going to come on to that in a moment, because the compliance is the bit that people really get caught up in themselves of trying to understand, what do I need to do with this? Compliance is very, very complicated, or it's perceived as very, very complicated, and people overcomplicate it in order to charge you more money to solve the problem, right? So it's really, really key that you understand what those look like. Obviously, there's payments and currency issues. How do I get things from euros to pounds and pounds to dollars and so on? Keeping a consistent brand in multiple languages becomes complicated. It's about having a consistent key branding message that can be replicated in multiple languages in multiple countries. Competition risk. Yeah, you're definitely increasing the competition risk. You're getting people to take more notice of you without any shadow of a doubt. You've obviously got the geopolitical instability, or fun, should we say? The logistics. Getting containers all of a sudden into Europe has become much more difficult this week, because there's some terrorist activity, and containers can no longer go through the Red Sea. So they're now going around Cape Horn and back up, Cape Good Hope, and then up. So there's a whole route of things that might work, but actually, some of the places you want to expand into, you need to consider what those complexities might be. Europe is very, very stable. The US is very, very, or North America is very, very stable. So those places to expand are very simple. When you start moving to more exotic locations, the geopolitical risks and economy become a bigger factor, and it's well worth considering. And then you've got technology and infrastructure limitations. Do you need a warehouse in every location? How does that warehouse look like? Do you need people? What's the technology you need in order to make those things work? And there's lots of different options for you to consider in that. So we've worked with over 2,500 sellers to help them to expand, mainly from the US into Europe. So the advantage of that is that what we've been able to do is we've really been able to dial in and look at what actually works. We work with sellers across a number of different areas, both from compliance and from warehousing, which means we see everything that comes through the system from a data perspective. We get to see the data and the insights from thousands of sellers. That means what we get also is to understand what works and what doesn't. So what we were able to do off this information was create a successful expansion pathway. Now, I'm not going to go through this today, but this gives you the 7 basic steps of what you need to do in order to successfully expand your business. Now, we use this for Europe. We've started to use this for other parts of the world because the process is exactly the same. But what we're going to talk about today is the 3 secret steps for a successful e-commerce expansion. So let's talk about secret number 1. This is the major hurdle that everyone needs to overcome. And it's step 1. It's secret 1, and it's compliance. What we need to do is you need to understand what the compliance pieces you need to solve as a business in order for your business to expand. And they're split into 2 simple areas: business compliance and product compliance. These are the two simple areas that you need to resolve as a business. Now, let's talk about business first. Okay. Your business needs to solve the compliance pieces when you expand into any new region. Now, that forms, in most cases, something called tax. Wherever you are in the world, you have to pay tax. Now, if you think about tax as a very simple mechanism of, if you want to sell your products in a region and you want to get them into the hands of people, that's brilliant. But as a thank you for selling in that region, the country wants to take and charge you tax. It's a very, very good exchange. You sell products, you give the government some tax. Now, different regions, different countries have different tax regimes, and therefore you need to consider what that is. But you need to understand what that tax regime is in that country, whether it's goods in, whether it's at sales, whether it's on goods out, whatever that looks like. It's important for you to understand what that looks like. Is it sales tax? Is it VAT? Is it GST? Depending on which region you're going into, you need to understand what that looks like. And getting a real firm hold control on that is really, really important. So make sure that when you're expanding, secret number one, business is tax, and understanding the tax regime or the taxes in that region to make sure that you're not falling foul of any issues that might come up. There's two other things that come under that. One is IP, making sure that you've got, making sure you've got the right things to protect your brand in that region. And what also comes under that is the ability to receive and make payments in that region. So you want to make sure you've got a payment processing gateway solution. Okay. The second part of compliance that you need to solve is products. Now, every product in every region needs to make sure it's compliant with the region's differences. Now, the way I always look at this when we're talking with clients is, look, has your product damaged or harmed anyone in the region you're selling in? No. Great. So there's three things you need to consider. One, what regulations does your product fall under in that region? Okay. Is it electrical? Is it a supplement? Is it a medical device? Is it just a general product that doesn't need any requirements? Whatever it is, what regulations does that product fit under? The second part is making sure that the product meets those regulations and has the relevant certification to make sure that it can show it meets those regulations. All right. And the third part is making sure any labels or any instructions or any health and safety type information is all relevant in the language or compliant to the regulations that it's going into. So three things to consider. Identify the regulations your product falls under. Two, make sure your product meets those regulations and has certificates to prove it. And thirdly, the product has the right labels to meet those regulations as well. They're the key things you need to solve with your product compliance. So two things with compliance: business compliance, product compliance. And you need to make sure you're compliant in both of those in order for you to successfully expand in those areas. And that's the core piece that you need to solve first. In some ways, you almost need to do the products first, because you want to make sure that your products are ready and able to be sold before you start registering for tax in those regions. So a lot of our clients really focus on the products first. So that's the first secret. First secret is compliance, which is products and business. All right, let's talk about secret number two. I bet this wasn't a secret, was it? But this is the logistics. There are several things you need to be able to do with your logistics. You've got to be able to get products into the region and get them in the hands of your clients or your customers. That's what you need. You need someone who can get them in and get them to your customers. You're an e-commerce business. You need to be able to fulfill products. So there's several areas you need to consider here. First one is you need to be able to ship your products from factory or manufacturer into the region. So that could be by air, it could be sea, it could be by road or rail, whatever that looks like. Now, depending on the quantities that you need to ship, it's going to depend on what your strategy looks like for that. Is it a container load? Is it one pallet load? Is it a carton? Is it a carton to get things moving? Is it a pallet that's moving part in behind that? And is there a container coming after that? So understanding how you're going to get those products from manufacturer into the region is key. Now, when you get to that region, you need to make sure that you can do the right customs documents in order to make sure that they flow through customs straightforward and easy. Now, you want to make sure you're working with someone who can do customs in the region. And the reason for that is if you don't, and the people and they don't understand your products, they're going to get held up in customs. You do not want your products held up in customs. It becomes very, very difficult. So you've got your stock from manufacturer, you've got it through customs, and you need to get it into some form of distribution center, fulfillment warehouse. Now, you need to be able to fulfill in that region 3 different types: business to business, whether you're going into Amazon FBA or you're sending to distributors. You want to do B2C. Can you do B2C fulfillment? Business to consumer fulfillment. What does that look like? Is it from a marketplace? Is it from a website, wholesale? Last thing is direct to consumer. And you take orders from your website and get it direct to the consumer in that region. Whatever that looks like, you need to make sure you're working with a partner that can deal with those different types of processes to support you. And the last thing is you need to be able to do returns in the region. How do you do returns in the region to support your customers? That's the key thing that you need to be able to do. How do you support that and how do you build that out? You may want to make sure you can get returns locally in region. And what that does is it solves your logistics problems. What does that return process look like? It's all very well being able to get it in the region, get it to the customer, and then it comes back from the customer. But what do you do with it then? The last thing you want is it to be sat on a shelf, gathering dust, being charged storage. What you want to be able to do is to be able to get that product, get it onto a site that can work with used products, and you'll all know where I'm talking about, in order to get it out the door and get it sold and get it removed. Because every day that it's on a shelf is costing you money. Every day it's in our warehouse or someone's warehouse, it's going to cost you money. So getting your logistics set up is really, really key in order to having a successful expansion. And you need to make sure you've got a partner that can work with that whole piece in the region. Okay, secret number 3 is the online distribution. A successful expansion is about an omni-channel approach in most cases. Having it on just one platform or one channel or one marketplace, typically in region, doesn't work, especially if you're a marketplace seller. If you sell on marketplaces, I can guarantee the marketplace you sell in, wherever you are in your home country, will not be the biggest marketplace in every part in the world. So it's about having an omni-channel approach and have the ability to be able to put products on different marketplaces or platforms to support what you're looking to do. So there's going to be different marketplaces, whether that be Amazon, eBay, Walmart, Otto, Real, Bowl, and the list goes on. It's about identifying what the right marketplace is for your product in the country you're selling. Okay, let's take Amazon, the biggest marketplace in the world in most cases. Yeah, but it's not across the whole of Europe. The whole of Europe is the biggest, yes, in the UK, but it's not necessarily the biggest in France or Spain or Italy or Poland, and the list goes on. So it's about working out what those other marketplaces are to sell your products. Platforms. Are you on Shopline or Shopify? How are you, what does your website presence look like? How do you adapt that website presence for each country? Omnichannel is part of that, making sure products are translated, your SKUs are translated in the right language, so when people read it, it actually makes sense, and making sure it's in the right locations for your products. So overall, they are the 3 secrets. You need to make sure you've got business and product compliance solved. You need to make sure your logistics from pick up from the manufacturer to all the way through to flow to your customer and returns is able and being able to be completed. And the third thing is making sure you can distribute your product and sell your product on marketplace platforms or wherever you want to sell those products in that region. Really, really key. So that gives you the 3 secrets. Now, where we really focus is we've been very successful in expanding people into Europe. That's where we have absolutely focused. Now, what you can see is what typically happens is a product goes through product compliance. You get VAT in the UK. You get your store set up, you ship the product, I can't go that quick, I'm sorry. But you see the process that you need to go through. That process is what many people can do is they can do one part of that jigsaw. Expanding to a new region can seem very daunting and very complicated. What you need to be able to do is to identify a partner that can aid you and support you in doing that. Now, yes, hands up, that's something we can do. The idea of this webinar, this presentation, was really to give you those 3 secrets. Every single one of you can go and find a partner to do all of these bits and identify whether it's going to work for you or not. If and when you need someone, we're here to do that. We are a one-stop shop that solves that for you, and we're here to support you. Our vision is to globally expand brands. If you have a vision to globally dominate your brand, we are the right partner for you. Yeah, that is what we do. But our mission is to change the way the world expands their business. There's going to be much more information coming from us on that. But what I'd love you to do is join us at the Expanders. It's a tribe of entrepreneurs that want to globally dominate. I make no doubt or make no shame in saying that I want our business to globally dominate. We want our business to be in 24 countries. We want to get your products, therefore, into those 24 countries so you can globally dominate as well. I'd love you to join us at the Expanders. Come and join me and build a tribe of entrepreneurs that want to globally dominate. You can join us on LinkedIn and Facebook, and that's where the 2 groups are. Now, from here, you've got 2 options. There are 2 very simple, straightforward options. One, you can do nothing. Okay, you don't have to do anything from this at all. The second part is to do something. And here's the 2 things you need to consider. How much money is your expansion going to cost? And do you have the resources to do it? And I want to cover that off right here, right now, because I think it's really important so people understand what does that look like. Let's talk about costs. If you want to expand into a new region, there's several costs you need to consider. 1, you need to set up in the region and you need to be able to continue to be able to do that. 2, you need money, costs you to be able to buy new products. Now, what I would say there is if you've got overstock that you haven't sold, there's a great way of maximizing the opportunity with your overstock to expand to a new region. That's the second one. And the third cost is really around the shipping and the fulfillment in region to make that happen. So you need to consider what that looks like. Our average client in year 1 would have a setup cost of between £5,000 and £7,500 and an ongoing cost of £10,000 to £50,000, depending on how much they're shipping and how much they're selling. That gives you a very, very good guide of what that looks like in year 1 for a smallish seller that sells between $1 and $3 million of stock a year. All right. Second thing is the resources. What resources have you got to enable that to happen? Now, there's several things to consider here. If you use 10 different agencies for both the UK and Europe, you're going to need lots of resources internally to be able to staff that. Okay. If you don't have those resources, using a partner like us is very useful because you only need one person to work with our team. Our team work with you as a one-stop shop to globally expand you. All right. So working with us makes your life much easier. But you do need to make sure you've got someone internally that can drive the project forward. Now, if number 2 is you and you do want to do something, here's some options. Join our LinkedIn and Facebook community. You're the Expanders. Just go and find it on both the Facebook and onto LinkedIn. Come and join us. We'd love to join us. They're new groups and we're slowly going to build those out and we'd love you to come and join us there. You can follow and look at all of our content to start building a relationship with us. We've got hundreds of webinars, hundreds of podcasts, all talking about global expansion. You can talk about that and listen to that before you do anything with us whatsoever. Hell, you can even join our joint mailing list so that we can send you information that's relevant that talks to you about how to expand. The last thing you could do is to drop me a line, set up a disco call with one of our success managers. Our success managers are trained to support you and give you everything you need on what guidance from a consultancy sales perspective of what you need when you need it, right? the beauty of working with us is because we have everything to support you, we don't need to sell you anything other than what you need right now. Because if we give you what you don't need now, you're wasting your money. Your money is better spent on ads and stock, not in extra VAT numbers that you don't need. All right. So you can join us and contact me today to start your expansion today. Okay. I'm going to open up for some questions and get those questions coming through and see what people have got to come. But before I do that, what I do want to just touch on is here's a scan that you can do. This is a QR code, go straight to my LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to me and send me a message, please do. I'm going to come back to this any moment, but drop me a line, talk to me about what you want to do, how you want to expand. Let's get one of our success managers talking to you about how you do that. All right. Thank you very much for attending. I know that your time is precious, and I know that you could be spending your time with your loved ones, your business. Hopefully this was useful. We're going to be running these on a regular basis. We're here to globally expand you and support you. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar and plan. Thank you very much. Have an absolutely stonking 2024, and I will speak to you all very, very soon. Have a great day.